Hey y'all, CB here again at NBS Welding. Doing part 2 on this car trailer modification that we're doing. If you didn't see part 1, you want to check that out as well. But the next thing that's up on this is I'm wanting to turn my attention to this toolbox that Paul wants mounted at the front here. He's got this is a crossbed toolbox. And you know, he had all this material together before he ever got a hold of me about doing the work on the trailer. And he said he had a young welder start on this, and the feller built this frame for the base of the toolbox. So I'm looking at he said if you want to use it, use it. He said if you don't want to use it, don't use it. Don't know if it'll do you any good, he said. I'm looking at it and I'm wondering what the point is, to be quite honest. This crossbed toolbox right here, it's designed to set in a truck bed where it would be supported right here. And the bottom of that toolbox right there wouldn't even contact the truck bed. It would be floating in the air. That toolbox right there is built to be strong enough to hold all the tools you'd ever need to hold. Even if it's just sitting on a truck bed right here. Now, if we look at what's built right here, this is 1/4 inch plate. This 1/4 inch plate is 10.2 pounds per square foot. This is a bunch of weight for nothing. And the way that this is framed in, Paul told me that it was really tight. He didn't like how it was fit too tight. But the way that this is framed in would really limit you if you wanted to change your toolbox. You know, the bracketry that holds this toolbox on the front of the trailer here, it could just run under there and bolt to the toolbox in a way that if Paul decided he didn't want to use this toolbox anymore and he bought a different one, then, you know, if you didn't make a really tight box like this, you might get you a toolbox that's 1 inch longer or 1 inch wider or whatever. You know, and the way I would build the framing for this, I would make it where if you wanted to do that, it'd be fine. Let's look at this toolbox here in the Super Service truck. I've had this for a long time. You know, this might not be the same size. What if you wanted one like that? Actually, one like this, I think Paul's probably using that because he's got it. He already had it or something. But you know, the fact that he wants it, another thing about this, he wants that thing elevated so that when he loads a car on, he can bring the car all the way to the front and the car will go under the toolbox. So we're gonna be raising that up, and that means that when you're accessing the side, you know, you're gonna have to be standing on the back of the trailer accessing the side, and he'll be able to get to the tools, no doubt. But you can see how if later down the road that was a hassle, he could get a box like this and put on there where, you know, see how this is made. If you had a box like this, you could walk right up from the back of your, you know, from the back of your trailer and have better access. We're not changing the toolbox right now. I'm just saying that when you build a frame like this that's unneeded to set that box down in, you're limiting yourself on the type of box for no reason, and you're adding a bunch of steel and weight to support something that doesn't need to be supported. Like I said, the way that aluminum toolbox is made, the bottom of it is it's made to where it's just floating in air when it's in a across the bed toolbox application in a truck bed. But yet that aluminum and the way it's built would hold all the tools you ever wanted to hold without anything under it. Now, in this application, I'm probably going to have something under it, but I'm not going to have a bunch of 1/4 inch plate under it. That's just overkill. It's not necessary. So Couple things on this is going to be elevating this toolbox up where it's on some framing to where when you pull a car on the car trailer, the car can fit under it. Like I said in the first video, I looked at my wife's 2020 Explorer, and it was 48 inches from the ground to the windshield wipers. And that's really high. I don't think, you know, you're not going to pull a car anywhere near into the windshield wipers with that toolbox. But Paul had said he was thinking like 35 to 50 inches. I don't think we got to go 50 inches, but we'll take a look at it. Well, we want to go up a little bit and go forward with it, and let's make us some mounts for this toolbox and get it in place. Holding that thing up there, I'm holding it up there with the forklift, and I was just imagining what if I had a brace coming straight down from the front. So I used this, I put this ratchet strap up there as a plumb bob to show that there would be enough space between that bracket and the jack handle that you wouldn't have a problem busting your knuckle on the jack handle, you know, when you're cranking the handle. So that's probably as far that way as I would go if I was doing a brace like that. Then the next thing I was wanting to make sure, one of the parts of this we're going to be doing, we're going to be using these standards that he bought with 2-inch channel that he's got. And we're going to be making a wall that's removable that'll go across the back, or across the front, across the back, and across each side, like to contain something like firewood he mentioned. And so that means that where that standard's going to go into this standard pocket right here, you don't want to have a bracket coming down off of your toolbox that would be further back than right here where that's going to go across. And so I stuck that T-square up there to represent that, and we got room right there. And then the next thing I did is I went in there and I measured, if you had this thing right here as far as forwards and backwards, where from the back of the toolbox to what would be the front of a loaded car, if the car was loaded up on here, is about 10 inches. So I measured 10 inches back from the front of Tina's 2020 Explorer, and the height of that's about 42 or 43 inches. So I set this at 44 inches. And here's my problem. The access when I get up here on the trailer to the toolbox, this thing, it's really high. You know, if I open this toolbox like this, well, I can reach in there, but it's way up there. I would like that to go down, and I'm going to move it down as far as I can. Well, I'm going to move it down until it's comfortable to reach in that toolbox. So what I need to do, I need to stand up here on the trailer and be able to pull that lever on that forklift. Maybe I'll do it with that ratchet strap. So 10 inches back from the front, or 36.5 inches. And if you had a piece of angle iron going across there, you're going to lose another 2 inches. That puts you at 34. Not even close with this. We need to move it more forward. The idea of putting it high enough that a car like Tina's Explorer would go underneath of it, it puts it so high that, you know, if you go from here to the deck of the trailer, 43 inches, it's too high to access the box is the issue I'm running into. So we got to get it down lower and try to move it forward. If we could move it forward enough that this part of it was flush with here, you'd never have a clearance issue. And I think that we'll just have to figure out how to get the bracketry where it doesn't go straight down and interfere with the jack, because the toolbox is out of the way of the jack. We just can't have a bracket coming straight down if we move it forward, because if we have a bracket coming straight down and the toolbox move forward, it's going to interfere with that jack. I'm going to try moving it forward. So what I'm realizing is that thing can be set up where the back of that toolbox is flush with that trailer, and you wouldn't have to worry about a car hitting it when it was loaded on there. At the height it is right now, when you're right here messing with the jack, it's not in the way. It's up there. You're not going to bang your head on it or anything. I don't think all that bad. And the bracket that would hold it, I can have a bracket that comes up right here. Now it's going to be narrow in the front. It's going to be narrow just like this trailer tongue, but that's all right, because it'll get wider just like this trailer tongue as it goes back and then come down. In other words, the same shape of the trailer tongue would be the shape of our bracket. And I think that'd hold all you'd ever want to put in that toolbox. So here's what I'm thinking. From right here, we're going up 42 inches. From right here, we're going across 38 inches at the same angle as the trailer tongue. And then we'd be coming down right here. Well, this elevation that I'd be welding the angle iron on is 13¼ inches above right here. So we got to take the 13¼ off of the 42. So this would be the idea right here. Going up 42 inches, across 38 inches, and coming down 28¾ Now this angle iron be like this. One of these would be facing one way and the other one would be facing the other. In other words, they'd be a mirror image of each other. Let's saw it up. Bunch of the angle iron that Paul brought me. This stuff looks like it's been welded on a little bit. There was only one that I actually had to grind a spot off of to get the 6 pieces that I needed out of these short pieces. I'm going to use this up for this. So let's cut it up. I like how this is going so far. Plenty of room to operate the jack handle without any interference from the bracketry for the toolboxes. I measured the toolbox, although I don't really need it in here right now. If it was in here, it'd be in the way. But all I needed was the measurement, and I know that the toolbox was 23 inches this way. You know, so when the toolbox is flush with the back right here, which is, you know, the front of the trailer, that puts, see how I've used these flat bars? I stuck that flat bar up there. That flat bar would be the front of the toolbox. And I had this other flat bar clear back here, actually, run from here to here when I set up that 23 inches. You know, and those two flat bars represented the edge of the toolbox. And then I used that to make these marks right here, which in this case, Paul had some 2-inch tubing. I want to run a piece of tubing across the center underneath of that toolbox. That'll tie these two brackets together, and it'll also give the box some support in the middle. And the other thing about a piece of square tubing is if we want to run some self-tapping screws down in there, those screws will be inside of the square tubing. If you ran self-tapping screws through this angle iron, that would work just like we did on the ramps on the channel, but the screw would be sticking out here exposed. We found that to not be an issue on the ramps because they're kind of hidden anyway, but it would be real obvious to see on this angle. I like the way you run a self-tapping screw in a square tube and it disappears. So what we want to do, we're going to want to cut a piece of that 2-inch square tubing that goes across here, and obviously that's going to be on this angle. So I've got this flat bar set up, and then I'm going to use a bevel square. With the bevel square, I can get this angle. I can use the bevel square to set up the DeWalt 872 chop saw, and that'll give me my correct angle to fit that in there. And obviously with my soapstone marks on here, I can measure from here to here, and that'll tell me how long that piece needs to be. So let's make one to go in there. While we're in this area, we need to put Paul's winch on here. I set it there in place. Everything looks good with it. It came with a fair lead. This is a fair lead that came with it. It's not a roller type. The roller types are really nice, but the only time you really need a roller type fair lead is if you're gonna, really pull hard at an angle. If you do a lot of jeeping, or you got a winch on the front of your truck where you got to pull with your cable at weird angles, the roller fair leads with the bearings in them, are really nice. On a trailer like this, what we got right there, just that plate, is really all you need, because you're just going to be pulling from the front of the trailer to the back. It's not like you're going to be pulling way off to the side. If you needed to pull to the side, hell, you'd move the trailer or something. But anyway, let's get this hole pattern figured out, and we'll get this winch put on here while we're working here in the front. Been times before where I said, a lot of cases, I'm not crazy about washers, especially split washers like this. I've had a lot of times where something came loose and there was a split washer like that. After it tightened, the split washer opened up and it came loose because of it. Then you have the other washer that came with these winch bolts. Just a flat washer. So there's a flat washer and a split washer. Well, I've had good luck running bolts right tight against a piece of mild steel with no washers at all. And let me show you how this is going on putting these bolts in this winch. That bolt right there, I just ran it in a couple of threads. It's not cranked a bunch. Right there's all it took to get it out. Right there, I just got it in a thread. So you can see with this winch plate in particular, with those washers on there, you're not getting much thread in the nut. Now, obviously, I could get longer bolts, but I don't need longer bolts. As far as I'm concerned, I just need to ditch the washers. That's what I'm going to do. Different bolts could be used if necessary, but I'm going to do this like it was mine. And if this was mine, I would take all them washers off and get rid of them, and then run that bolt in there, and that bolt's going to get a full nut of thread, and that's going to take care of it. You could, on some winches, you might want to think about using Loctite. I don't think it's necessary here. I think this will be just fine to pull things up on this trailer without the Loctite, and I just think we need to do away with the washers. I'll let you in here to look at this fair lead before I bolt it all up. Actually, it's a little too hot to bolt up right now. I'll let it cool down a little bit so I don't burn my fingers too bad. But you see what I've done right here. This is the fair lead that came with it. I put the winch on free spool so I could pull a little bit of cable out through the fair lead, and it's right here ready to bolt on. Got the bolts right there. And I took a couple pieces of flat bar and cut them to length and drilled them. So that fair lead is going to bolt to there, and those flat bars will not only hold that in place, but it's tying this angle iron and that front part of the trailer together. So that's a lot stiffer right there than what it was. Mr. Toolbox is back on the scene, and he is ready to party. I'll tell you what I'm doing while I'm waiting on that to cool down and bolt up. I stuck that thing up there. I'm liking how it's looking. It looks the way I thought it would. I want to put the self-tapping screws in the tubing there in the middle, and that's going to do a few things. If you see how this box is made, I like how they did this, where they've got a bent side. That stiffens that up a lot. And then with the bottom piece coming over this lip, that gives you a double corner. With that welded like that, that's a pretty good. The thing is, though, you see the toolbox is going to be sitting on this, and then there's a gap here. And that's a piece of metal right there that's always going to be flexing, depending on how much weight you put in it. Unless you're in a situation like this where there's a gap in there right now, but when I self-tap and screw, if I put steel binders from in the toolbox down into this square tubing and squish this gap tight right here, that'll be great. That's going to stop that flexing of that box for good and also hold it in place. So in order to do that, though, we need to know from in the toolbox where the tube's at. I think the easiest way to do that, I'm just marking it. I'm taking a piece of soapstone and I'm going to mark the box. See that soapstone line? So now I'll flip that thing up, drill some holes in through the bottom where I want holes. Set it back in place, and then when I go from inside the toolbox, all I got to do is find those holes. And that'll be where the steel binders need to go. Part one of this series, we did the doozing on the back, on the ramps there, see? This part two is going to be the doozing on the front here. Got the toolbox mounted, got the winch mounted. I'm liking it. So, the next thing we're going to be getting into is the sides he wants on here. And I've got a couple of the standards stuck in place here, and I actually made a video and sent to Paul talking about the height of these. These are really high, 48 inches full length. And I was asking if he wanted them that high or if he wanted them cut off, because he's got enough channel to make 3 runs of channel across here. And I said, you know, if we use the whole 4 feet, them channels are really going to be far apart. I didn't know. I was thinking 31 inches, and I laid it out like this, where there'd be one 6 inches up, 18 inches up, and 30 inches up. And then, of course, that would make 31 inches to the top. But then I got with Paul, and we got the information we needed. He wants it 40 inches. I got this marked at 40 right here. And then I've got one I've got one right here that's 5 inches on center, and that would leave enough room that you could do this. Because I was going to leave those hooks, these are good D-rings here. I was going to leave them on there, and you could still use that. And I got one right in the center and one at the top. And then one of the things that Paul informed me about that I didn't know, he's thinking he might at some point want to bolt plywood to these channels. So if you had really fine stuff in there. And when he said plywood, I was thinking, you know, then you could put mulch or anything in here. And you know, really, if you wanted to have the plywood on there, you could cope out little places in the plywood to swing them D-hooks around, you know. And even if you were hauling something like mulch, you're not going to lose that much mulch out of a little hole that small. So 40 inches is the height we're going with on that, and that'll be part 3. I'm calling this the end of video 2. And I want to thank y'all for watching. Remember to learn to work with what you got. That way you always have everything you need. Hey y'all, CB here in the break room at NBS Welding. I'm hollering at you about the NBS Welding t-shirts. We've still got NBS Welding t-shirts with the NBS Welding on the front, big NBS Welding on the back. We have had a lot of orders so far, which a lot for us doesn't take that much, but we got the American flag right here on the sleeve. We do still have t-shirts. It helps the channel if you buy a t-shirt. If you think you'd like to have an NBS Welding t-shirt, please get a hold of us. Send Tina an email request to nbswelding@aol.com. We have had some people order t-shirts, and of course we want to give the shout out and the thanks for helping the channel by ordering a t-shirt. And we have got a lot of compliments. These are good quality shirts. People have mentioned that they're good quality shirts. They're comfortable and everybody likes them. Haven't got any complaints at all on the t-shirts that we mailed out. So $25 plus shipping for a t-shirt. And if you send the email request to Tina, nbswelding@aol.com, and she'll figure out where you're at, and she can figure out what it's going to cost to ship it to you, and we'll get it done. All right? So thank you.